So I'll be talking to you a little bit about Myriophyllum spicatum in southern Africa. So Myriophyllum spicatum is a submerged macrophyte that's rooted. It grows from the sediment, from the mud or the sediment up through the water column to the surface. And it invades slow-moving waters of rivers, lakes, and reservoirs. And in these areas where it invades, it creates monospecific beds, which obviously have biological as well as socioeconomic implications for the region. So what do we know about it so far? This is the agreed upon indigenous range, which includes Europe, Asia, and some parts of North Africa. We know that this is the invaded range. It was first recorded there in the 1940s. And then we've got the southern African population, which we're just not really sure about. There's a couple of ways that it could have got here. It could have come down by natural spread over some time. Alternatively, it could have been brought anthropogenically, either from Europe or Asia, where southern Africa does have a fairly long history of trade. And that would mean it would have to be considered an introduced species. So just a bit of history in southern Africa. It was first recorded in 1829 in the Swartkops River in the Eastern Cape. It was considered a Category 1 weed in the 1980s, and this was done primarily as a precautionary measure due to its weedy nature in North America. And it was only really considered problematic in 2005 on the Vaal River. And that's probably because we got a handle of our floating aquatics like water hyacinth on the Vaal, which opened up a new niche for our submerged weeds to start taking over. And obviously with that we have an increased interest in biocontrol, or in management and control, especially biocontrol. And this is the insect we'd like to release, Urichyopsis lecontii. It's a completely aquatic weevil. Does considerable amounts of damage, and is considered host specific for release in South Africa. But we've got this native versus exotic debate of the plant, and if it is in fact native, ethically we have to resolve this before we release biocontrol as a management option. And to do this, we've done a number of things, and we've had a look at the genetics. And these three areas we've got a considerable number of samples from. So we've been able to sample Europe quite well, North America and the invaded range, and then the populations in southern Africa we've got a fairly wide coverage. So what's come from this study is that the European plants match the American plants quite well, so their invasion probably originated from Europe. The American plants don't really match ours very well, or at all, and then not surprisingly, our plants don't match the European plants. But we've got this major gap in Asia, and it's incredibly difficult to get samples out of there. We have got a fair number of samples now which are being run. Unfortunately, I don't have the results or a complete set of results from that, so we're just not sure. It could still have plausibly come from Asia, which would then mean it would be considered an introduced species. So then we looked at the distribution of this plant using herbaria or records to get an idea of where it is and what's happened to it since, in southern Africa. And from this we got 107 independent specimens, mostly from South African herbaria, but some in Zimbabwe and Botswana as well. And then we used the GBIF database to bulk those up as well. So if we consider the distribution, so that's where the first record was in 1829. It's got an incredibly wide distribution. It really seems to have, if it's introduced, it really seems to have spread quite well. But these are the only populations that we have, or living populations that we've been able to confirm. And that's despite several surveys to a lot of these historical sites. So what the distribution's telling us is that we've got fairly disjunct populations that seem to jump major distances between catchments. And this plant is bound completely by water. If it's removed from the water, it desiccates and dies.